how did you start selling your work? Who was your first customer or your first few? So when I think about becoming a working artist, I kind of think about selling your work in different stages, because you have the beginner stage where you are a brand new artist. You might not even know that you want to do artwork professionally just yet, but maybe you're starting to make some sales. So that's stage one. Stage two is what I call the hobbyist. So this is someone who is selling their work somewhat frequently, like a couple times a year, but they're not putting too much marketing effort into it yet. They're not yet like treating their artwork as a business. They're just making sales every now and then whenever they come in. That's the hobbyist. And then there is the working artist, the professional working artist, someone who treats their entire artwork like the business that it is, actively goes out to find leads, find customers, and convert them into paying clients. And they do this on a recurring basis that creates a system to support their livelihood. That's the working professional artist. So let's kind of go through these first three stages. Give me all of your questions, because I've been having a week. I randomly got like 60 orders through my website, which is just like not something that usually happens to me. You know, I make the bulk of my income through art markets doing my art stuff. So to see so many orders, because it all happened on one day, I didn't have time to script out a video, and so I thought I would ask you guys for some questions, and we're just gonna have a little cozy Q&A. First, if you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Jen Carmiel. I'm a watercolor artist and illustrator, and I paint the small things in life, the small joys, as they say. I run something called the Small Joys Club, so if you're interested, join, but otherwise, to the questions. So this one asks, how did you start selling your work? Who was your first customer or your first few? So I actually wrote down a handful of first customers. Story number one of first art sales and customers was my school, when I was in high school, held this auction to benefit the school itself. So all of the sales from the students who made artwork essentially went towards the school. And so every single person in art classes participated in this auction. And what it looked like is whenever you walked into the school hall, there were lots and lots of paintings hanging up around you with a piece of paper next to the painting. And people would write their names and their bid, so however much they're willing to pay for the painting, and then all the proceeds go to the school. I remember I had put some project into this auction. I put in a lot of artwork actually, but there was this one portrait project of, I'm trying to remember who it was, Jimi Hendrix, I'm pretty sure. I think it was Jimi Hendrix, an acrylic painting portrait of him. Apparently, I didn't know this, but a couple people got into a bidding war over this painting, and one of them was my French teacher. And my French teacher, after the auction, found out that she didn't get the painting. And so she went to my art teacher and said, can you get Jennifer to make me this painting again? So that was technically like one of my very first commissions, was making this portrait of Jimi Hendrix again for my French teacher. Another one, and this is a funny one, my very first job at 16 years old was working at Arby's, you know, like, hello, can I take your order? Do you want fries? That kind of thing. And I remember there was this team meeting where our regional supervisor was present, and she asked everybody in the room what they wanted to do with the rest of their life, with their future. And I said something along the lines of like, I want to be an artist. I think that'd be pretty cool to be an artist. And then they're like, well, how do you become an artist? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Probably need somewhere to show my artwork, I guess. And my regional supervisor actually gave me the opportunity to hang my artwork in this random Arby's. And so I did, you know, I just hung up my artwork in the Arby's. And I remember there was this one pen and ink portrait. It was drawn with a ballpoint pen, and it was a portrait of a person. And apparently one of the customers liked it, and they talked to the manager on duty at the time, and they asked for whoever the artist was to make it again, but with black instead of red ink. And so, you know, game of telephone, the manager gets the message over to me, I make the painting, or I draw the drawing and I bring it back, and, you know, exchanges were made. I guess they gave the money to my manager gave it to me. But you know, that was another very early sale that I had as a kid at 16 years old. Another time I was loading paintings into my car, and my next door neighbor saw that I had paintings, and they're like, hey, can you draw my dog? And I was like, yeah. And they gave me like 50 bucks for drawing their dog, and I was like, this is cool. And then the last one from this kid era of drawing and painting and finding customers was And I think this is actually the biggest one, the one that made the biggest impact on like my ability to do this full time, and what really started to plant the first seeds of maybe I want to be an artist full-time career-wise was when I had applied to this juried competition. It was called like the Student and Emerging Artist Competition or something like that, and I applied at like 17 years old, still in high school, all that fun stuff, and I remember somehow I had won first place at that competition. Isn't that crazy? And one of the first place prize, so the prize was like a bundle of things. It was like a gift card to get some art supplies. It was a couple of things, but one of the things included in the first place prize was free admission into what was called the First Friday Art Walk, and that was downtown wherever I lived. They had a whole art festival the first Friday of every single month, and so usually it costs like $50, $75 as an entry fee for a booth there, you know? But because I won this artist competition, I had free admission to this art walk the entire year. So the first Friday of every single month, I would bring myself and my little artworks down to this art walk, and I would talk to people and maybe sell my art. Yeah, I had a lot of $0 sales days. I mean, who doesn't? But I was just happy to be there, man. And so, yeah, I had a really great time there. I sold a lot of my artwork just off my table, you know, and so that was like my very first customers, so to say. And I also met a lot of people who eventually ended up commissioning me. So I had this one very, very sweet couple who commissioned me to paint a mural on the wall of their home. And so that was a great experience. If you want to hear more about that particular experience, I actually have another video I'll link below. And it was all of my favorite memories of being a painter and an illustrator, because they are some of the sweetest people, and they did something absolutely surprising, crazy. Definitely I recommend checking out that video, I'll link it below. So after we are no longer a kid again, what does it look like when you're a hobbyist? So I would consider myself a hobbyist when I was in college for painting, and I was showing off my work regularly, starting to work within collections, starting to work every single day, and like showing up as an artist, as they say. My very first sales when I was a hobbyist are as follows. So I remember one time I had been posting my work to social media every single day, like clockwork, just one painting a day, no fuss, no crazy marketing schemes like you have to do nowadays. Like I'm a very firm believer in marketing changes over time, and so if you ever hear someone say, oh well, I just posted on social media and it worked for me, like times are different. This is no longer 2012. This is no longer 2019, 2020, like just posting on social media. That just doesn't work anymore. But back then it did. And so I was just posting on social media every day. And I had someone that I knew from way back when DM me, and they said, hey, I've been loving your work. Like, what's up? I'd love to get a painting from you. And I remember I sent them a couple paintings. I'm like, here's a couple that I think might suit you. And they picked out one. They Venmo'd me $400 and I drove it to their house. Isn't that cool? Another time I applied to have a solo art exhibition at a college, and one of the patrons who walked around the gallery one day just asked to buy one off the wall, and I said, $100 please? And they said yes, and I was so happy. But yeah, a lot of my sales from my hobbyist era came from social media, I would say, or by people reaching out to me. A lot of it felt like luck. I was just being present as an artist, and I would occasionally get people that are like, hey, can you do stuff for me? Isn't that cool? But what I feel like this question is getting at, where did your first sales come from, is likely coming from a point of, if I wanted to make sales, what would I do? But all of what I just mentioned doesn't necessarily help you, because this is just luck. This is just being in the right room at the right time. But I will say a huge portion of it is that you're willing to be open, and that you're willing to be very vocal about the fact that you are an artist. A lot of times if you're worried about, oh, what if I don't make sales, you're unwilling to even show up as an artist in the first place. Whenever someone asks, what do you do? Instead of saying, I'm an artist, you might say, whatever your part-time job is, or whatever your side job is, and that even counts your full-time job. Your full-time job that pays the bills is your side job when you're an artist. I just want that on the record. Because art is your main job. This is your main passion, and you gotta treat it as such. And so in those instances, I was not actively looking for sales. I wasn't actively looking for people to buy my stuff. It just kind of happened. Nowadays though, I am looking for sales. It is the case that I need to find customers. customers. And so where do I find them? I find that the easiest place to find customers is at art markets. I'm gonna say that till the sun stops rolling through the sky, but art markets are my best friend. They are where I validated my product, and they are where I built my customer base. It's the most reliable source of income that you can find, as well as the most reliable way to collect leads. And by collecting leads, I mean people most interested in collecting from you later on, so that whenever you have shop drops, when you have new collections that come out, these are people that you would message and let them know that it's happening so that they can continue to invest in you. You always want to treat people as if they want to buy from you in the first place, if you know what I mean. You never want to sit there and say, oh, who is going to want to buy this? Like, why would anyone invest in me? Like, no. Bestie, no. You want to approach this. You want to approach this like people are already looking for you, because they are. I genuinely believe that they are, and you need to believe it too. These people are out there looking for exactly what you have to offer, and nothing else can really compete with that. In fact, some of my greatest opportunities have come from people who I met at markets, people who are making work the same way that I am. And we'll just text each other, hey, I saw this open call for art. I think that it would be good for you. Or, hey, I saw that this thing is going on. You should check it out. Like, we always trade secrets, you know what I mean? And when it comes to the aspect of like not feeling like competition, I really want to, I'm kind of the firm belief that most people you encounter they're not your competition. Like, there's no way that someone will only buy from them and never from you, or buy from them instead of you as a substitute. Like, whenever it comes to creative mediums, that usually is not the case. I'm gonna say there was only one time where I met another artist and I genuinely felt like they could literally be my competition, and it's because they created work in the same medium and sold like very close to what I sold. Like, their theme was very different, but because I used to be the only watercolor artist in this one area, and then whenever they came, they kind of traveled to my area to test out the market and to see if it was worth their time. And they ended up not returning, and I was actually a little bit glad for that because I liked being the only watercolor artist there. But for the most part, you're able to eliminate the concept of competition by just leaning really hard into the area that interests you most. So for me, that's watercolor and kitty cats. So even if this one watercolor artist had stuck around, they don't make cats. So like, there's not a competition aspect there. And I actually did have someone come into my booth the following week and they said, weren't you here last week with, and I think it was some sort of like cocktail recipes with watercolors, and they're like, didn't you have like a cocktail recipe last week? And I'm like, no, that wasn't me. And I gave them the Instagram of the person that it was, because I always exchange info and such. So I didn't mind giving them the information of the person who did make the thing they were looking for. But she also didn't choose to purchase from my booth, and I'm fine with that, because a lot of people, you know what they like, and you shouldn't be changing what you offer because you want something, like, no one can ever take what's yours kind of vibe. You know what I mean? You just gotta lean really heavily into no one can take what's yours. They either vibe with my work or they don't. And actually, the most perfect metaphor that I can think of for this competition feeling is if you watch the Great British Bake Off. Stay with me here. If you watch the Great British Bake Off, there's all of these different people competing to win the best prize. They all want to make the best cake that they can and impress the judges. But you'll notice that all of these bakers do their best on their bakes, and they will help others. And I'll put it this way, someone else's failure to make the best cake doesn't make mine any better. I still need to get into the kitchen and do the best cake baking that I can, you know what I mean? And sometimes people can get so caught up looking and staring at someone else's workstation, being like, oh my gosh, they're making the best carrot cake I've ever seen in my life, that they don't work on their own cake. And so I hope that the message is just getting through to you. Focus on your own cake, bake your own cake, make it a good cake. And do not undervalue how much like your community will be strengthened, that your business will be strengthened when you make good friends with other vendors and other creators, other small businesses. How do you script your videos? I'm trying to make my very first video, but I cannot work off bullet points and I don't want to be reading a paper on camera. So let me tell you right now. So the way that I got started doing YouTube was actually by reading word for word off scripts, because I am like you and I cannot read off bullet points. So when I would start the camera, I would start to feel very self-conscious. My mind would almost go blank. So like I could not talk to a camera the way that I am right now. And the way that I combated that is by writing out word for word, like I was writing an essay, what I was going to say in the video. And I would have it up like literally right here. Let me show you. See? This is my little Google Doc. My Google Doc is up here, and then I read off of it. You want to try to have the script like almost right next to where the camera is, so that whenever you look away, it looks like you're just looking away to think. You know what I mean? For instance, right now, I'm reading off of the script, or I'm looking at the script right now, but like if I look right back at the camera, like you don't really notice all that much. It just looks like I'm thinking. And whenever I would edit things together, sometimes I would read a couple lines, memorize it, and then say it to the camera. And after a few weeks of doing that for like a year, I got a lot better at talking to the camera and going back to the script and bouncing back and forth, adding my own thoughts as I think of them whenever I'm talking about the subject that I'm talking about. But the most important thing to me in scripting is making sure I have a beginning, I have an end, and I have like a couple key points, like the key takeaways I want my viewer to know. If you want to hear more about the topic of scripting, let me know in the comments and I can try to make my own video like dedicated to scripting and such, because when I was first starting my YouTube channel, I actually was not a natural in any way, shape, or form. And I would like to demystify that, because I believe that more colorful, beautiful people, colorful personality of peoples could be out there, and they're just too shy because they feel like other people got it together and they don't. And let me tell you, that's just not true. No one's got it together. So you just got to get out there. And the last one is any tips on setting up an art market stall. So I would say I have very many tips. I actually had a video idea where I rank every single thing I've ever bought for my art business in relation to art markets, because I have bought so many things. Some of them were a complete waste of time, and then some of them worked really, really well. Comment below if you want me to rank art market supplies, because I will. Overall, I would say the number one tip is just to get out there and show up in the first place. What I would hate to happen is for you to forego starting your first art market, to not go to your very first event because you're afraid you don't have the right supplies, or because you are trying to be too perfectionist about your setup. My first setups were crazy, were not cool, did not look the best, but you know, I made it. And every single time I showed up to an art market, I said, what is one small thing I can do to improve this setup? And then I would go home and I would do it, and I would bring it back next time, and I would have one small thing improved. And let me tell you, if you do that and you rinse and repeat that over the course of an entire year, once a week, you're gonna get a pretty good setup eventually. So don't worry too much about showing up the very first time with every single thing that you need. Just show up with what you have. If that's a table and that's some artwork on the table, that's all you need. That is all you need. And then every single time you go home, say, what is one small thing that I can change to be better next time, and then do that. I will say that the two things that have made the biggest impact on my art market setup have been these two things. The first one is grids. So I build a wall of grids, which I then hang my art prints on. That has made the biggest impact on my art market setup, because people can visualize what the prints look like hanging up, and so they can visualize it in their homes. Some people will look at them on the wall and be able to say, okay, I want that one and that one, that one and that one, like be able to see them together. And so that will actually impact people buying more, because they're able to see multiple at once very effortlessly. So that's the most important thing, is the grids. The second one is having my baskets of art prints where people can tangibly look through them, because it's just psychology of buying. The second you touch something, now you want it. So by having people physically look through the art prints, that is something that has also genuinely super duper helped all of my art sales. Anyway, I am so tired. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I need a nap. I also need to pack all of these orders, but I'm also so tired. I'm curious if I answered your questions well enough. Part of me is interested in going through each of these questions and like making dedicated videos on them as well, because I feel like there's so much more that I could say, so much more than my tired brain will allow me to say. And if I actually took a couple weeks and like wrote you like a video essay, like it would make much more sense. But either way, I didn't want to skip another week of not like hanging out and talking. So I will also say that all of my favorite video topics come from answering your guys' questions. So if you have a question of your own, drop it in the comments and I will get to it next week. Either way, any amount of time that you choose to spend on this channel with me is a gift. It really is a gift, and for that this humble artist says thank you. Ooh, I'm so tired. I need a nap. Somebody let me take a nap.
This quest for the perfect gooey center starts.
These people went way too hard on their brownies. They should have just kept it simple. Like, everyone's trying to add too much random stuff to their brownies. Like, they just want a traditional brownie. Make them a traditional brownie. Anyway, I'm just sitting here on my couch, not able to make a brownie, yelling at the TV, saying all this stuff. Sometimes when I'm feeling sporadic, when I'm feeling special, I might make store-bought cookies while I watch this show. Chef's kiss. The best vibes.